Okay, hello everybody. Some time ago on my personal YouTube channel, I uploaded a couple of videos of some old recordings of audio cassettes containing Texas Instruments TI-99 4A home computer programs that dated about when I was a kid in the early 1980s. Probably I was 4 or 5 years old, somewhere in there. And I had these audio cassettes, and I finally had them digitized and uploaded to my YouTube channel. And some benevolent person was able to recover the text of these programs and emailed them to me. And I hadn't seen these programs in a long time. So I thought I would make a video of each of these programs one at a time. I'm just going to do one today. For archival purposes, you can see what some of these programs were like and how people were using these early personal computers in the early 1980s. The one that was the biggest surprise to me, I'm going to shift away from the emulator here. The one that was the biggest surprise to me was a recipe program that my dad wrote for my mom, which I am going to not cover in detail just yet. I'm going to copy the text of the program and paste it into the emulator. But this is the kind of thing that would be hard for people that didn't live through that era to understand. When personal computers were new, there was a big question. What in the heck are they for? How do people use them? Why would they buy a personal computer for hundreds or thousands of dollars? Potentially many thousands of dollars. And one of the common answers was, well, you could put it in the kitchen and you could use it to archive your recipes. And of course, very few people actually did this, but it was one of the selling points of early personal computers. And so this is a homemade recipe program that my dad programmed for my mother. And I'm going to paste it in here. Don't worry too much about the code. We might go over it in detail. I can tell my dad never actually finished this program because it does not actually contain the actual recipes. It just contains placeholders for the recipes, and presumably he was going to continue building out this program and putting the actual recipes in. But my parents got divorced when I was 5 years old, and this was probably written in 1981 or 1982, maybe 1983, and clearly my dad never got that far in finishing the program. But I thought it would be fun just to load this up. It's going to take a second for it to process. Now, obviously, you couldn't cut and paste into the original computer. This is just a feature of the emulator that lets you paste a program in like this. Okay, is it done processing? Yes, okay. So after all that, we should be able to hit run, type run, and let's see if the program runs. I think it should. So here we go. This is a program of Suzanne Fruhling's recipes. And of course, that has my mother's married name, which she doesn't have anymore. She's Suzanne Forcell now. But Suzanne Fruhling's recipes. If you're Suzanne, press 1 to continue. Others, press some other number to continue. Now, I'm going to pretend I'm my mother here. Although what I want to do, because this program is basically going to end at a certain point, we're going to have to run this several times to look at some of the different permutations and dive into some of the recipes because it was never a completed program. So let's pretend we're my mom, Suzanne. Press 1 to continue. It's really cute, by the way, that it has my mom's name in there. Obviously, this was written by my dad since my mother's married name is in the actual program itself. So Suzanne, press 1 to continue. Hi, Suzanne. Let me remind you that your recipes are scrumptious. Here they are. Recipes, main sections. We've got beverages, we've got breads, breakfast items, desserts, lunches, main dishes, salads, sauces, soups, vegetables. Please enter desired number. So let's just dive in at the beginning. Now, some of these recipes, I peeked, of course. I did look at the text of the actual program before I loaded it up. This is not the first time I've looked at this, but some of these recipes we still use to this day, and some of them we don't. And I need to call my mom and say, hey, Mom, do you still have the recipe for XYZ recipe? Let's take a look. Let's say we want to make some beverages. Charlie's Drinks. Now, this is something completely local to my hometown in Vacaville, California. There was a place in Vacaville called the Nut Tree, and it was a roadside stand originally, but became this gigantic complex that had a restaurant and a toy store and a small airport. And Charlie is the name of one of the train drivers. There was a train that would go between the airport and the toy shop, and you could pay to go on this train. And people that would fly into the Nut Tree would stop, get off their plane, park their plane, get on the train to the nut tree, and go have dinner at the restaurant or lunch or whatnot. So Charlie was one of the train drivers. My mom worked at the nut tree toy shop for many years and eventually became a waitress at the nut tree restaurant. So Charlie here refers to Charlie. What I know him as Charlie the train driver, and I sadly don't know his last name off the top of my head, but it says Charlie the train driver's drinks. So let's see what we have here. And clearly this never got entered in. So this is one of these frustrating things about this program, is that we're going to have to run this several times in order to see all these recipes. And of course we could look at the text itself, but it's more fun just to kind of play with it and see what my dad had in mind here. So we're Suzanne, recipes are scrumptious. Here they are. Boom, boom, boom. Let's say we want to make some bread. What kind of bread do we have? We have banana bread, date nut bread, nut tree bread. See, there's a reference to the nut tree where my mom worked, and granola. So we don't have any actual recipes. So if you try to visit any one of these recipes, it'll break the program because the recipes themselves were never entered in, as far as I can tell. So we're going to run this several times and see at least what the categories are, and then we'll see what happens if I'm not Suzanne. So let's say I'm not Suzanne this time. Let's say others press some other number to continue. So, hello, I am pleased to show you Suzanne's recipes. Please enter your name to continue. So, my name is Zach. So, let's enter Zach. Well, Zach, get ready for some delicious ideas. I love the name being stored as a variable, and I like the color changes on the screen. If memory serves, there were 16 colors on the TI-99 4A that you could call up and set as a background screen or change the color of the text. But it was common to use some of these lighter colored screens for the black text, unless you were going to change the color of the text. So we looked at beverages and breads. Let's look at breakfast items. Swedish pancakes. Now, I noticed right off the bat that Swedish is misspelled. If you look right here, it should be S-W-E-D-E. S-W-E-D-I-S-H, Swedish pancakes. My dad clearly made a typo there. We still make Swedish pancakes to this day. In fact, the Swedish pancake recipe we use, in fact, maybe I'll make a Swedish pancake video just about that. But the Swedish pancake recipe we use was a recipe that was brought to America by my great-great-grandmother Forsell. Her husband, my great-great-grandfather, Johan Forsell, was a Swedish parliament member, and he was a bit of a womanizer, apparently. So his wife left him, took their kids, including my great-grandfather, and came to America. They ended up in Wisconsin, and eventually through Seattle and down to Chicago, then Seattle, then down to California. But we still use this Swedish pancake recipe to this day. It's one of my favorite food items ever. So there we go. It's nice to see that make an appearance in this recipe program. So if we actually select Swedish pancakes, again, the program's going to break because the recipe was never entered in. So let's hit run. Okay. I know it's tedious to go through this every time, but I want to be as thorough as I can about documenting this program, given that I hadn't seen it in 40 years, so it's fun to kind of archive these old programs and at least show what they were like. And I think it's so easy for people not to understand how computers were actually used. So my dad bought this computer, and he learned enough BASIC, and he wanted to justify buying the computer to my mom, so he made a recipe program for my mom. And that's just one of the ways that people used personal computers in the early 80s. And, obviously, yes, we look up recipes on the internet nowadays, but this was like one of the main justifications for buying a computer in many cases. In fact, if you look at old computer advertisements, I don't think for the TI-99 4A, but older computers before that in the 60s and 70s, we're talking about, the earliest home computers you could buy. Sometimes you'll see pictures of computers in a kitchen, and that was the idea here, is that, oh, well, what are computers for? Well, put them in a kitchen. Women can use them to store their recipes on, as if that was a big problem. I'm not sure there's an actual problem to solve there, given that recipe cards work just as well, and you don't have to spend the time loading up a program to use them. Okay, so desserts. What kind of desserts do we have? So we've got a lot here. Cakes, candies, cobblers, cookies, frostings, ice cream, other/misc, pies, and puddings. And let's see what we've got here. I wish there was a way to go back. I think that's one of the biggest flaws in this program already, is that there's no escape route to go back to the main menu. And maybe my dad would have got there, but maybe he anticipated this was just one use. You just want to look up a single recipe, and then when you looked it up, it would be done. So we're gonna run. So we have a lot of different cakes here: carrot cake, Charlie again, Charlie the Train Driver's cheesecake, which I definitely need to see if we can track that down. Coconut cake, easy lemon cake, raw apple cake, rocky road cake, rum cake, yum, and the ultimate cheesecake. I'm not sure which cheesecake was better, Charlie's cheesecake or the ultimate cheesecake. It's funny, we also often use cheesecake is usually one word nowadays, and it's spelled out as two words here. So let's say we want to look at Charlie's cheesecake, and again, the program's going to break. So we're going to run. I don't know if people are going to watch past this point, but I thought you might want to see what recipes this program contains, even if the recipes themselves aren't here. So we'll pretend to be Suzanne, my mom, at this point. Here they are. So we were looking at desserts and cakes. Oh, you know, I probably should have moved on to the next category. So let's pretend we're looking at rum cake and it's going to break. Yeah, so we looked at cakes already. I love this. Let me remind you that your recipes are scrumptious. You'd have to know my dad. That's a sentence my dad wrote for sure. Okay, we were looking at desserts. And candies. What kind of candies? Date swirls and spiced nuts. My aunt still makes spiced nuts. I don't know if it's the same recipe for spiced nuts that she makes. I don't know what date swirls are, but they sound really good. Dates, of course, are really sweet, so date swirls sound great. No recipe. What other desserts do we have? Interesting use of a delay. I'll have to look. Probably the delay there is just a repeating loop. You know, you'd say let A equal 1 to 500 or whatever it is, and then the program would loop 500 times very slowly. I'm not sure how many times it would have to loop to create that delay. I don't remember, but we could dive into the program and take a look at how those delays were generated at a certain point. Okay, recipes are scrumptious. Here they are. Desserts. Cobblers. Now, I know there's a fruit cobbler recipe here. It's probably, yeah. See, we still make fruit cobbler to this day. My mom makes it, I make it, so I know exactly what that recipe is. It's an interesting fruit cobbler where you kind of create a batter, lay the fruit on top of it, you know, in a kind of a flat layer, and then you pour boiling water, you dot it with butter, and then you pour boiling water over the whole thing and put that in the oven, and the batter kind of bubbles up between the fruit. That's how we make cobblers, so I know exactly what that is. Maybe I'll make a cobbler recipe as well. So you come to my YouTube channel, you get vintage programming, logic and philosophy, and recipes, apparently. Okay, let's see what we have. Recipes are scrumptious. Okay, desserts. Okay, we looked at cobblers. Let's look at cookies. Carnival cookies. I don't know what carnival cookies are. Peanut butter cookies. Oh, my mom makes the absolute best peanut butter cookies. So, snickerdoodles. Everyone likes snickerdoodles. And sugar cookies. You know, that's probably right out of the Betty Crocker cookbook or something to that effect. But my mom's sugar cookies are always really good. So, but we can't look at the actual recipes here. Maybe I'll finish the program at some point. It'd be a fun experiment to take this program, make a copy of it, and see if I could actually complete the program, recipes and all, for archival purposes. That's an interesting idea. In fact, there's a program my dad wrote. It was a game, and I was hoping it would be on this batch of programs. It's not. It was called Shooting Star. And it would basically generate a random asterisk on the screen. And I forget what was in the middle, like you were a ship, or maybe it was just a line that rotated around. But you'd kind of aim from the middle of the screen and rotate, and you'd try to shoot the star while it was still on the screen, an asterisk. And I remember it being a really fun program, and I remember my dad saying it was a challenge to program, but sadly it was not on these cassettes, so I fear that the program may be lost. And in the back of my mind, I've thought about trying to recreate it as well, so maybe I'll dive in and do some vintage programming here and see if I can recreate some version, Zach's version of Shooting Star. Okay, more desserts. Frostings. Cream cheese frosting. That's pretty self-explanatory. Everyone makes a cream cheese frosting. But strawberry frosting. I don't know if that contains fresh strawberries or strawberry flavoring. I don't know. So something else to ask my mom about. Okay, Suzanne, press 1 to continue. Let's pretend to be me again. So here we are. I'm Zach. Get ready for some delicious ideas. What other desserts do we have? Okay, ice cream. Vanilla ice cream. I remember when I was a kid, we had this ice cream maker, and it would use actual rock salt, and you'd make it kind of the old-fashioned way. Very few people actually make ice cream that way anymore, but I remember it being delicious. I don't remember vanilla ice cream. I remember my mom made some sort of lemon ice cream when I was really little. Quite enjoyed it. So here we only have vanilla ice cream, and the program's going to break because we don't have the actual recipes. I know this is really repetitive for people that are sticking with this, but I thought you might be curious to see what, I don't know why you'd be curious. I thought you might like to see what recipes are on here. If you're interested in the TI-99 4A, if you're like me anyway, you want to kind of see everything that everyone was doing on the TI-99 4A, because every person who had one, every family who had one, had their own entryway. What did they do? Did they use cartridges? Did they write their own programs in BASIC? Did they go hardcore and write programs in assembly language for the TI-99 4A? For me, we just wrote basic programs in BASIC. I'm impressed with some of the things I programmed myself back in the day when I was really little. In fact, arguably, it's what turned me into a logic teacher down the road. I developed this knack for thinking formally, no matter how creative I am in other parts of my life and other parts of my career. But I ended up teaching logic, and I've always liked programming. Even if I'm not great at it, I at least have a knack for it. Thanks arguably to the TI-99 4A. So it's not a stretch to say that I owe my entire career to this computer system. Okay, what other desserts? We looked at ice cream. What are other / miscellaneous? Apple crisp. That sounds good. And vanilla mousse. And I noticed that mousse here is M-O-O-S-E as opposed to M-O-U-S-E. So, or is there 2 S's in mousse? Oh my God, I'm going to embarrass myself now. Definitely it's misspelled. Okay. Unless it's intentional. Maybe vanilla mousse was was a recipe spelled like the animal moose. I'm not sure. I'm making notes of things I have to ask my mom about. I haven't shown her this program yet. She's not too tech savvy, so after I finish this recording, I'll probably send her the recording of this. Remind her that her recipes are scrumptious, which they are. I can attest to that. Okay. Let's see. Pies. Lemon meringue pie and strawberry pie. One time when I was not too little, but, young enough or old enough where I should have known better, my mom said, I'm thinking about making a lemon meringue pie today. And I asked her, do we have any meringue? I didn't realize at the time that meringue was just egg whites and sugar. So, yeah, I should have known better. But lemon meringue pie. My mom makes a good lemon meringue pie and strawberry pie. And you could make it. Pies are basically the same. You can make most fruit pies the same way as you'd make a strawberry pie. So if I were making this, I would have just called it fruit pie. Okay. No recipe here for lemon meringue pie. But now I'm kind of craving my mom's lemon meringue pie. Suzanne, press 1 to continue. Yeah, the main thing this program is lacking, other than the recipes, is a loop back to the main menu, so you can look at more than one recipe at a time. I presume my dad would have got that far. Okay, puddings. Baked caramel pudding. That sounds delicious. I don't know that my mom has ever made it in my lifetime, or that I remember. If so, I don't remember it, but it sounds delicious. Something to ask my mom about. Okay, I think that was all the desserts, right? So we're on to the next category. Press 1 to continue. Here are the recipes. Okay, on to lunches. Okay, we only have a couple of lunches here. Mushroom cheese tart. Who is making a mushroom cheese tart for lunch? That sounds a little more involved than one might expect for lunch. Especially if you're on the go like everyone is these days, except for people who work from home like me. Maybe I'd make a mushroom cheese tart since I work from home. Tuna burgers, that sounds good. I haven't had a tuna burger before. That sounds really good. No recipes, though. My sister would not like tuna burgers. She doesn't like fish, so that would be more for my benefit than for my sister's benefit. No more lunches. Let's see what the next category is. Main dishes. Beef, casseroles, fish, other miscellaneous, pork and ham, poultry, and stews. Okay, so we have a lot to check out here. Beef stroganoff. Again, that's the kind of thing that's probably straight out of some 1950s, Better Homes and Gardens or Betty Crocker cookbook. So nothing to write home about there. Okay. Get back into dinners, or main dishes, I guess they're called. Okay, we looked at beef. Casseroles. Chili rellenos. That sounds delicious. Why, it's funny. I remember when after my parents got divorced, we used to go to Chevy's, the Tex-Mex Mexican-American restaurant. My mom would always get chili rellenos, so that's her favorite Mexican thing. Impossible quiche. I don't know what an impossible quiche is. Notice lasagna is misspelled. There's a missing letter there, missing an A. And Oriental casserole. That sounds really good. So a couple things to ask my mom about there. What's an impossible quiche and what's an Oriental casserole? Okay. I'm going to mix it up and just choose myself again. I'm Zach. Well, Zach, get ready for some delicious ideas. The ideas themselves aren't delicious. The food is delicious. The ideas are just inspiration, I guess. Interesting grammatical quirk there. Okay. Main dishes. Looked at casseroles. Fish. Tuna Florentine. Apparently my dad didn't get around to proofreading this, so Florentine is what that's supposed to be, missing the letter R. I didn't correct this. I'm not going to make any changes just yet, although I might make a copy of this and try to flesh out these recipes at some point. Okay. Run. Tuna Florentine. Sounds like, was it Flo from the car insurance commercials? She makes tuna Florentine. Progressive. That's the company that makes the funny car insurance commercials with Flo. Okay, we were on main dishes. We looked at fish. So what's other and miscellaneous? No entries at this time. Okay, but he reserved a place for it. Okay. Oh, this one looped back. Notice that. So that's handy. Now we don't have to run the program again just to move on. So pork and ham. Pork chops, scalloped ham and potatoes. There we go. I wonder what happens if you just hit enter. Oh, okay, try again. So it forces you to enter something. Get an input error there. Scalloped ham and potatoes and pork chop. Pretty run-of-the-mill American fare there. Although I haven't had pork chops in a while either. That sounds really good. My grandma made the best pork chops. She put prunes in there and pan fry them. I remember her pork chops being really, really good. So probably this was my grandmother's pork chop recipe if I had to guess. Okay, main dishes. Poultry. Alpine chicken. I don't know what alpine chicken is. And chicken almond. And the chicken almond might be a Nuttree recipe as well. That sounds like something that might have been on the Nuttree's menu at the Nuttree restaurant in Vacaville. Not sure about that, though. So let's say we want to make chicken almond. And again, we are stuck and have to rerun the program. Kudos to anyone who's watching this and still sticking with this as I have to rerun this program again and again and again and again. So was that all the main dishes? I forget. Stews. Golden chicken stew. Would that be a chicken stew like in a, I don't know, some sort of white wine sauce maybe? I'm not sure about what golden chicken stew refers to. A lot of these are things my mom probably used to make, and she stopped making at a certain point as she had less time at home and had to go out into the workforce and, do things in the crock pot to feed my sister and me while she was out working. Bless her heart. Okay, I think that was all the main dishes. Notice there's a limited amount of screen real estate, so I can see my dad did a pretty good job of not filling up the screen to the point where it doesn't look good anymore. You can still see everything on the list here. If he'd added an 11th category or a 12th category, this would be a little less usable. So good job on making a really usable program here, other than the fact that it doesn't loop back. Okay, salads. What kind of salad? Bean salad, fruit salad, Jello salad, lettuce or cabbage, and other and miscellaneous. Bean salad. Now I know for a fact my mom's bean salad is not what it used to be. She uses, I think she uses rice wine now and some orange marmalade and a rice wine vinegar. I meant to say. So I don't know what she was making back in the day. Maybe it was my grandma's bean salad recipe, but I know that my mom makes it differently now. Okay. Not that anyone really cares about the commentary on my family's recipe history, but for me it's interesting. And, I think it was just charming. My parents are divorced, and so here's a nice little thing my dad made for my mom. And it's really nice to see after 40 years of them being divorced. And, I don't want to bring up bad memories for them or anything like that, but it's touching to see the nice things people do for each other and the creative ways that computers were used for practical purposes, creating harmony in a relationship. And it's nice to see. I'm quite touched by this program after so many years. Because we were on salads. Fruit salad. What kind of fruit salad? Sour cream salad. That's the kind of thing that people really don't make as much anymore. Man, I'm not sure what this recipe is, but I know what this is. I know the genre of food here. It's a very mid 20th century kind of recipe. I'm anxious to get to the Jello salads. I forget if that was next on the list here, but here they are. Okay, salads. Yes, Jello. So, yeah, let's see what. Okay, here we go. Here are the Jello recipes: cranberry cream salad, orange Jello salad, peach Jello, and strawberry Jello. It's funny they were all put under the category of salads, and you can see how the meaning of the word salad has narrowed over the decades. Where it used to have a broader meaning to encompass all kinds of. If salads includes peach Jello, I would never use it that way now, but clearly it was used that way then. I remember my grandma Fruhling, my dad's mom, Velma Fruhling. She made the absolute best Jello salad. I remember it had mayonnaise in it. And I don't know if I have that recipe or if anyone has that recipe, but I would love to find some equivalent. And again, it's the kind of thing that comes out of early 20th century cookbooks as packaged foods became more common. You could just buy mayonnaise in the stores. You put mayonnaise in the Jello, and as Jello became available, now you've got Jello salad for an appetizer with your dinner. Very 20th century kind of cooking, and I would love to recreate some of those. So let's pretend it's cranberry cream salad, and we're going to get a line break. Okay. It's interesting that this is not only a piece of computer history, but it's also an artifact of 20th century American cuisine, the kinds of things that people were making as packaged foods became more common, while women were still at home, not quite yet entering the workforce, how early computers were being used in the household. And this is a fascinating historical artifact for me. I don't know if anyone else views it that way, but I'm quite intrigued by this. So you have lettuce and cabbage, which is the kind of thing I would normally describe as a salad. So, okay, lettuce and cabbage. Charlie's coleslaw. And there's Charlie the train driver from the Nut Tree in Vacaville, California. God, I wish I knew his last name off the top of my head. I need to ask my mom about that. So maybe I'll put it in the comments if I can hunt down his last name. But apparently Charlie had some good coleslaw, which I would love to get a hold of. Okay, run. Let me remind you that your recipes are scrumptious. Okay, so we had, were there more salads? Other and miscellaneous, yes. Antipasto relish salad. Now this is an interesting one. I can describe this one because this one comes right from my grandmother Forcell, my mom's mother. And it was it was not a salad in a bowl. It was served on a serving platter. It had lettuce, I believe, but it would have things like artichoke hearts and some salami and some sort of Italian dressing that I'm sure my mom has the recipe for, and a couple other ingredients. But it was served flat. All the ingredients were laid out in kind of a pattern, so it looked really beautiful. And then you'd kind of serve the dressing on top of it once you dish yourself some up. But that was called antipasto relish salad. And again, I'm sure that came out of some sort of 1950s or earlier American cookbook. Cute name, though. Antipasto relish salad. Makes it sound so Italian, but really it's only Italian because it has a little salami in it. And that is all of the salads. let's move on to the next category. Okay, so hello, I am pleased to show you Suzanne's recipes. Please enter your name to continue. Get ready for some delicious ideas, or ideas for delicious recipes. Should be a better way to put that. Clearly, grammar wasn't my dad's strong suit at the time. Okay, sauces. What kind of sauces do we have? Barbecue sauce, Chinese barbecue sauce, fish sauce, and raisin sauce. Now, the Chinese barbecue sauce was probably a nut tree recipe as well, because I remember them having some sort of Chinese barbecue items on the menu. And again, this is coming from California. So California, if you know, has a high Chinese population. Chinese workers were responsible for building the railroads in California, like through the Sierra Nevadas. So with the large Chinese population in California, you get things like the fortune cookie being invented, but you get things like this at restaurants at the time in California, Chinese barbecue sauce. Okay, and again, questionably authentic, of course, but evoking some sort of Chinese cuisine. Okay, barbecue sauce, Chinese barbecue sauce, fish sauce. I'm curious what fish sauce is, and raisin sauce. And I guess raisin sauce would be used for desserts, probably. Okay. And we're nearing the end here. Let's see what else we have. Here they are. What do we have? Okay, 2 more categories. We've got soups and vegetables. What kind of soups do we have? Harvest salmon chowder. I'm really curious about this. I don't know this recipe. To my knowledge, my mom has never made it for me. But harvest, because it has like fruits and vegetables in it. Not fruits, but vegetables in it. Like, fresh from the field kind of vegetables. Like harvest the corn and put it in the salmon chowder. Not sure exactly what's going on there, so I'd have to ask my mom about that. I know that's not the only kind of soup my mom makes, but it's the only one that found its way into this recipe program. Let me remind you that your recipes are scrumptious. Okay, what kind of vegetable recipes do we have? Creamed spinach. Now, creamed spinach is delicious, and it's super easy to make. You just basically make a roux. You take some butter and some flour, some milk, and make a little sauce out of that, cream sauce. Throw some spinach in at the last minute, and boom, you've got creamed spinach. It also works for tuna. I grew up eating my mom's creamed tuna. Same thing, butter, flour, make a little roux, put some milk in there, thicken it or thin it to the desired consistency, put some tuna in there, or spinach, or whatever you got, and you got creamed whatever. Super easy to make, and I know exactly how that goes. I think that's the last category. Let's run it to make sure we haven't missed anything. Okay, and we're going to pretend to be my mom here for the last run. Hi, Suzanne. Let me remind you that your recipes are scrumptious. Here they are. I guess that's it. What happens if we enter another number? Let's say we enter 11. It'll say, oh, it just repeats the loop. That's really nice because you don't want it to end the program if you make a mistake. You just want it to loop back, right? What if we enter something absurd like, input error. It's got to be a number there. And I remember that in TI Basic it distinguished between a numeric string and an alphanumeric string, if memory serves. So let's run it. Ooh. Charlie's drinks. I wonder what Charlie liked to drink. Let's run this one more time. We're going to end on the menu here, I believe. There we go. Yeah, we'll just end it right here. But again, I want to emphasize that, for people who are watching this that are younger than me, so at the time we're recording this, it's 2022. I am 44 years old. I was born in 1978, and personal computers were brand spanking new. But they didn't do very much yet. There was no internet. You couldn't just Google a recipe. And it wasn't totally clear why someone would want a computer in the household. For my dad, who was interested in electronics and an electrical technician at the time at Ball Metal Corporation in Fairfield, California, it's clear why he wanted a computer. I think he had a kind of a geeky streak to him, and computers were new and relatively affordable, and he still had to spend a bit of money on it, and he had to justify it. So I'm sure he explained to my mom, "Oh, we can get this thing, and you can keep all your recipes on it." Yeah. And that's part of the reason he got the computer, got approval to buy the computer. But culturally, this is something computer companies were doing to try to convince people to buy their computers. That was one of the common answers to the question, what do you need a computer for? Well, you can put your recipes on it, and look how useful it'll be. You can keep it in the kitchen. And of course, no one ever kept a TI-99 4A in their kitchen. Ours was hooked up to a giant console living room TV. And, for people that are younger than me, they don't necessarily remember this, but TVs were built into these giant wooden consoles. They weren't flat screen TVs like today. They were cathode ray tube televisions that were a couple feet thick, and they were stored in these giant, very nice looking pieces of furniture, these giant wooden cabinets. So RTI was hooked up to the back of the television with the RF modulator that came with the TI-99 4A. And basically just put the computer on the floor in front of the television. I remember just kind of sitting on the floor or laying on the floor typing into the computer. I would often type programs from various books, or not magazines, but I had a couple of books of computer programs, a couple that came with the TI, and I think I had another one called 101 Tips and Tricks for the TI-99 4A. I remember typing in some programs out of that. I would write my own programs, or I'd play with the cartridges. I had quite a few cartridges for the TI-99 4A. But this mythology of people keeping their early personal computers in the kitchen so women could store their recipes on them was largely fiction. But here's an actual example of a recipe program for the TI-99 4A. So this is almost just proof positive that it was part of the culture of early computer systems, early PCs in American households in the late 1970s and early 1980s. A little window in time. And that is no longer really true. Although to this day, if I'm trying to look up a recipe, I'll just grab my phone and Google a recipe or go to all recipes and type in a recipe. So clearly they were onto something there, and there are companies based on that kind of thing to this very day. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this. The TI-99 4A is without a doubt my favorite vintage personal computer system. Despite its many, many, many technological limitations, it was really touching to see something interesting and beautiful that my dad made for my mom on this old TI-99 system when I was a really, really little kid. I am very appreciative of the person who recovered this program for me. They didn't actually identify themselves. I only have their initials here, CAS. So Symphonic Metal, whoever you are, with your initials, CAS, thank you very, very much for taking the time to recover these programs, especially one like this that is so sentimental to me, given that my parents are now divorced. And it's a nice little personal artifact that, my parents had a good relationship at one point before they got divorced. So thank you very much for taking the time to do that. And I hope everyone enjoyed this, fairly laborious run through of this program. It's without a doubt, there are many, many ways I would improve this program now, from including the actual recipes to creating feedback loops to escape back to the main menu if you don't see what you're looking for. But this was a really nice program, and I got a few notes written down of things to ask my mom about. Let's see if I can recover some of these vintage recipes that have gone by the wayside in our family culinary history. Anyways, thank you very much. Everyone have a great day, and thanks for tuning in.